As far back as I can remember, I dreamt of a normal life. A life filled with normal things. A life where monsters don't live in closets or under the bed. A life where ghosts aren't real. I just wanted to be normal. But that didn't happen. It wasn't meant to be. Since my early 20s, I have experienced profound paranormal events that would change my life. Extreme poltergeist activity, living amongst those that have departed this earth in ways unimaginable. It has affected my loved ones and children with no end in sight. I could hear things, see things, and feel things not of this world. I asked myself if this was a gift or a curse. With the help of my mother and close friends, I emerged a paranormal investigator. Since 2013, I have been on a relentless journey to learn about the paranormal. I invite you to follow me into the unknown. Welcome to the Necromancer Live Show.
Hello, and welcome to the Necromancer Live Show. I'm your host, Justin Brown, and we have a different format tonight. We're actually going to talk to people. Isn't that fun, friends? We're going to talk to people other than ourselves. We got Rich Valdes on the show tonight, man. What's up?
What's up? How are you?
I'll tell you what, man. I'm grinding. I'm grinding it out, and I hear that you're doing the same.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. My dog's in vet hospital, not doing so good. But I welcome this distraction.
Well, hopefully, we'll be able to do a little bit of a distraction for you tonight, and maybe we can get some good energy flowing your way to help you out. I'm sure if we ask, we shall receive. What do you say, chat? Can we send some prayers and some healing energy to not only Rich and his dog, but his entire family? I'm sure they can use some.
Definitely, thank you.
So what we're going to do, we got a little while. We're going to take a break in the middle. We'll let Rich take 5 minutes or however long he takes during the middle. Me and Missy will just sit here. I don't have any ads to run yet, but when we get in full force on the show, we will. But yeah, we'll take a break in the middle. Let Rich take care of some stuff, stretch his legs, go to the bathroom, tend to his matters, and we'll be back for another hour after that. But we have plenty of time to just ease into this. Okay.
And I'm here.
Yeah, Missy is here. She is here moderating chat. She's going to jump in and interrupt us so we can, reminding us that we have a chat and they have questions and they have comments, and they're the ones who drive this show, and hopefully they'll have a lot of interaction tonight. But the first thing I like, every time I read the term demonologist on someone's profile, it's something that you have to immediately take a look at. Okay, there's a lot of like, oh no, they have demonologists on their profile, but when it comes to Rich, there's cred. Okay, and we're going to talk about the cred. Let's address the elephant in a room. For those that don't know what a real demonologist does, kind of give us the origins of your path, how you got into it, your studies, and however you want to branch off. I'm sure they're dying to hear this.
Back in 1987, to be exact, my pastor back in the day, I'd been going to that church since I was 11 years old, and he had always noticed that I had an inclination for angels, demons, things of that nature. And I was always asking him questions about it. So just a few months before I was supposed to turn 18, he approached me. He said, "Rich, I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and I'd like to see if you'd be interested in taking me up on this offer. How do you feel about, going down the route of being a demonologist. And I was like, the heck is a demonologist? Because I had never heard the term then. And he went ahead and explained it to me, and he said, look, this is just not a job, this is a calling. So I'm going to ask you to take some time to pray about it and, you know, meditate on the idea. And if you have any reservations, let me know and I'll answer any questions. I took the time. I think it took me about 2 weeks to really check up on the terminology, demonology. And he said it wasn't just demonology, angelology, occult practices, anything out of the norm, even other religious studies and beliefs. And I realized that, yeah, this is something that I've always been interested in. Why not? So he started, I'd say about a week after my birthday, as soon as I turned 18 years of age. And he started teaching me and everything that had to do with names that pertain to demons or fallen angels. I prefer to call them fallen ones, because because they're no longer in the grace of God doesn't mean that they're still not angels. They're just fallen angels.
And their offspring as well, right?
Well, the Nephilim, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, you know, it leaves. It's like once you go in one door, you find that there's a hallway that has many doors. It almost feels like the Matrix when Neo first went into that hall, and it was like, you know, all those doors that showed up, and that's really what it's like for a demonologist. And being involved in that, it kind of showed me that this was so vast and there was so much to learn. And that's when I started, 18 years of age. My teachings with him lasted about 2.5 years until he passed away. And then after that, I went for a while there just catching up on everything I had already learned until I actually found another church to join, and finally went with Pastor Leo and his church. He trained me for another year and took me out on the road with him as well and showed me how to do deliverance, not exorcisms, deliverances, just to observe, and also what to look for in potentially people that could have demonic activity going on in or around them.
Can you elaborate what to look for real quick? Just a few things.
There's a lot to look for. You know, when we get cases like this that come to the church, and mind you, I've always I got so used to getting these cases through churches, not through the paranormal. It was only later on, because I was in the paranormal long before I became a demonologist. It was only until the shows started on TV that Screaming Demon became a thing. And then I discovered that everybody and their mother in paranormal teams, you know, were saying it's a demon. No, it's not. Naturally, back in the day, they would go to a church first before they'd go to a paranormal team. The things to look for, well, a red flag for me would, believe it or not, be if a person calls me up or sends me an email saying, I think I'm possessed. Okay, when you're possessed, you don't know you're possessed. So that's a red flag for possible mental illness. I would immediately recommend or ask, have you had a mental psych eval? And if they respond with no or yes, I proceed with that and I ask, well, okay, if you have, then what was, you know, diagnoses? And if they tell me things that should be other red flags like schizophrenia, split personality disorder, there's so many out there, I have to take that under consideration. And not to say that a person that has mental illness cannot have an attachment or possession situation going on. Just saying that you have to proceed with even more caution than before, because that could become an issue down the road. It could, you know, force them into a psychosis. So you have to proceed with, you know, in tow with the therapist, if the therapist is willing to work with you or not, but also within their guidelines, and also make sure that they're on their medications, and make sure you have to test for the spirit or spirits, plural, and not let the person know that you're testing. And the things to look for are the usual steps: demonic infestation, demonic oppression, and then eventually possession. And then there's a fourth oppression. It's not oppression. I'm sorry, obsession. And infestation is how did they get into your living area? And it's usually as simple as 3 knocks on a door, or people always joke about it, playing with a Ouija board not closing properly and the Z word coming through, which is usually, I think, the fallen one that's with that one particular tool. You usually using being a kid or back in the day, and it doesn't happen right away. People think that it happens right away. It happens maybe years down the road. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and that's all they need, because time for a demon, fallen angel, whatever you want to call it, means nothing to them. They have eternity, in where we have a very limited, short amount of time, and they could strike whenever they like. They can strike when you're weak. That's when the oppression stage comes in. They start oppressing you in the sense of you start losing sleep. Your natural defenses go down, you get sick. They start affecting people around you. Your job, everything gets affected. And that's how they gain access. When I say they, it could be the lower levels that gain access. And then after that, the hierarchical type demon tries to take over. That's possession. So that's the third stage. If and when you're able to remove that entity from a person, that person goes awesome, great, I feel great. And it may not, it's not the wave of a magic wand here that we're talking about. We're talking, it could take days, weeks, months, even years before a demon or demons are finally gone. I would rather get the news that, yeah, I am mentally ill, give me pills, I'll be fine, than to have to be told that I'm possessed.
Right.
That's just me, because I at least have some control over that. When you're possessed, you have no control. But the problem is that once they are gone, they do come back, and the person, the victim, has this void within them that they don't know how to get rid of. They feel like something, a part of them is missing, because in retrospect, as they look back, they start realizing, I kind of feel alone now. I kind of feel like there's an emptiness inside. That's the obsession. They start obsessing over what is missing, and without even knowing it, they're sending out that vibe, that invitation back. What they don't know is how things work. At least biblically speaking, it states that when they are removed, they go on to dry places seeking refuge, but they will find none. When they come back and see that the place they were once in has been swept clean, they come back with 7 more wicked than it to take over again. That's when it really gets hairy and dangerous. So those are the 4 stages, if you will.
Right. In your belief, or are you taught, why do these entities seek out people in general? Do they target certain characteristics? Is their main agenda just to turn everyone away from God? Kind of go into that, because I feel like the people who are targeted by possession, as far as what we can see, what's documented, and what's kind of almost barely public knowledge, are people who believe or have faith to begin with. Kind of answer that question. And have you met people dealing with demonics that don't believe in it at all?
To answer your first question, I have one name I hope people will recognize if they're really, well familiar with it. Annalise Miquel. Emily Rose, better known as Emily Rose. Devout Roman Catholic, and went to church, did mass, did communion, everything, and they picked on her. And I would say the ones that have the biggest target for people that do believe in God, because that to them is, it's like saying, I'm going to go fishing, but I'm just going to try and catch, bass, or, small snapper. No, you're going to want to catch, yellowtail dolphin or a marlin. And in the demonic realm, that's what a Christian is to them, at capturing a yellowtail dolphin or a marlin. And those are the ones that have the biggest tag, the biggest bullseye on them. And Annalise Michel, better known as Amelie Rose, but her real name was Annalise Michel, and this did not happen in the States, it happened in Germany, was the perfect example for this. Devout Roman Catholic, there was no reason for her to have been attacked the way she was. She died weighing 68 pounds. I want you to think about that. 68 pounds. She would not eat. She, in fact, the only time she would drink or eat was her own feces and urine and bugs. I've delved into this case file often, and I've heard the actual file tapes, and she was definitely possessed, because that's how a person actually does sound. It sounds like a chorus of voices coming through at the same time. And it amazes me. That's around the time the Roman Catholic Church actually started implementing mental and psych, they're both the same, evaluations. But what they had actually diagnosed her with was epileptic seizures. Mm-hmm. And that I'm sorry, that's not epileptic seizures. I've seen epileptic seizures before, and I've never witnessed anything like that. This woman was levitating at times. She had the strength of 5 men when she was a scrawny young girl that could barely even lift, shouldn't have been able to lift, herself, much less other people. Very violent. And they always tend to pick the ones that, come with a high price, more than the ones that are easy to pick on. They don't bother with, because they're like, yeah, no, I already got this one over here, but I want that one over there. Yeah, that one's more interesting, because that one, it's kind of like the Job effect. That's what I like to call it. Job was a very faithful man to God, a very faithful servant of God, and ironically, in that story, God and the devil made a deal, and he said, I bet you I can take your best man out. He's like, bet's on. And he took everything away from Job, but Job never gave up on his faith. And then God restored everything back to Job. It's funny. I think that a lot of people seem to think that it's always because of what they do, and sometimes that's all they need is just a little crack in the door. But it's kind of like playing with fire. To me, fire is something that you need in order to cook your food, keep you warm, even regrow your crop. When you burn down the crops, it enriches the soils. But when you stick your hand in the fire, you then respect it, don't you? Mm-hmm. And I think that's when people don't really realize that you're choosing to stay there and keep warm next to the fire. You're going to stick your hand in there, the same fire that's going to cook your marshmallows. I don't think that's a very wise thing to do. And that's all it takes for you to get burned. So it varies. But I would say that the people that have the biggest target on their heads are the ones that are the faithful. So I guess this target here on my head.
So with, basically that's what I was expecting you to say. And from my research and experience, they have really no reason to go after people who definitely don't have any relationship with God or any of the Abrahamic religions at all, because it would be a complete waste of their time. And I see a lot of people use that to refute, not only the existence of demons but religion as a whole. What about the people that out there don't believe? It's like, well, why would they attack them? If you're in a war, why would you attack your neighbor on your own side? Basically.
To throw an example in there, I don't know how many people out there, or even if yourself.
Thanks for the sub, Wolf.
happen to be Walking Dead fans. But the very first season, Rick and gosh, I forgot the other guy's name. He was killed by Negan, bat to his head. But anyways, they learned that putting on guts and blood on them to walk amongst the dead, they were ignored. It was only when it started raining and all the guts from one of the zombies they had killed had started washing off, and then the zombies actually could smell them, and they were like, "Hey, that's food."
Oh God!
It's the same analogy here. You know, if you're like them, they're not going to mess with you. If you stay in line, you know, stay in your lane, don't worry about them. But if you veer a little bit to the left or to the right, then you're going to have some issues, and they're going to take notice, and that's like sending off a flare for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I may, just for a second, over the years, I've had a very dysfunctional but interesting relationship with religion. When I was very young, the church I went to freaked me out.
Oh my.
Everybody there freaked me out. It felt like a cult. I felt weird. Okay. But I learned that people who are different, that have sensitivities, that have maybe, you know, further down the road, something to do with the spiritual world, that is normal. It wasn't like a warning saying you need to get out of here. It was a warning saying, hey, people come to church for reasons. All these people are here for a reason. It's not because their lives are going great and they don't need all this in their life. It's, you know, they're here because they do need it. And I was feeling all the, you know, stuff that people go to church for, right? Mm. So I didn't learn that until late. And then later on in my 20s, 30s, and now in my 40s, now that I'm in the paranormal field, now I'm starting to do the research. Now I'm starting to see that you need to pay attention to this realm, this chapter in paranormal research, because there's definitely something to it. And when I started learning about consciousness and what it meant, or what is in stake for, you know, needing an afterlife, you consciousness needs to exist outside the brain and the body. And if consciousness does exist out of the brain and body, so does platonic values like good, evil, so on and so forth. So where are those things? They're not in here if we are existing as a disembodied consciousness, a soul, whatever you want to call it. There are those things out there to have to exist as well, good, evil, and what is the embodiment of those things? Well, you start to look in to what all the old literature says. You know, it's all got some ring of truth to it, passed on, you know, through all the different religions. So I started doing research in demonology. You know, if I'm going to do the paranormal thing, you might as well read up on it. And it is fascinating to go through all the different, you know, the Quran, the Jewish beliefs, you know, all the Abrahamic religions, and study all the stuff in King Solomon's stuff, and to find all the parallels and how they connect all the way back to the further civilizations that we can find. They're there. You may call them something different. There may be, you know, differences on where they come from or how they've manifested through, you know, through time. But the similarities, like how the angels fell, how they interacted with humans, especially the women, how the offspring happened, how the flood came, all those things you have to take a look at. And you have to ask yourself, well, there definitely was a flood. Why? You know, was it to wash the world clean? Well, that's our interpretation. But you also have to consider that our perception of what that external good and that external evil is not the main picture. What the main picture is, you need to know what side you lie on and where you are at the end of the day.
Agree.
Because our fate all points to one of those, right?
Well, no, you're completely correct when it comes to that, because the way I see it, and mind you, I've had my struggles with religion as well. You're not the only one. Religion is man-made, hence it's not perfect. It derives from their belief system of believing in what has already been written thousands of years ago and retranslated, hundreds, thousands of times over time. There are, when you have a religion, let's call it Christianity, because I don't think Jesus was walking around, promoting, hey, let's all be Christians. Because Christian, if you actually look at the word Christ, it means Messiah. Okay. His name wasn't Jesus the Messiah. It was just Jesus, and he was known, to everyone as the son of Mary and Joseph. And he had, half brothers and sisters, something that a lot of people don't like to point out. But you think Jesus was born and then Mary and Joseph just closed up, shop and said, okay, that's it, we're good. No.
Right.
I'm sure Joseph wanted to get jiggy with it when it came to Mary, and he was like, hey, we already did one for God, I need some help in the carpentry business here. So they had kids, and that can be found in scripture. There are so many religions, and let's face it, Justin, we have Catholicism, Presbyterian, Baptist, Protestant, we have Anglican. The list is long and long. Even within the Catholic Church, we have Roman Catholic, Old Catholic, and it continues and continues and continues. But there's variations, but they all splintered off of the belief of Jesus. So that being said, we have to think of this. Jesus didn't go around saying, and as I teach you these things, I want you guys, when I'm gone, start Christianity. He didn't do that. Somebody did. I think it was one of the apostles. They started calling it Christianity. It spread obviously throughout the world, and that's how that got started. There's Buddhism. There's there's Jewish faith, there's Native American faith. They all have to be respected. But what's the one common denominator that they all have? They believe in something greater than they are. They worship something greater than they are. Whether it be earth, even Wiccans, witches, they worship, earth, fire, that sounds like the band, but okay, earth, wind, fire, water, and spirit. And that's what the pentacle stands for. They give homage to that as well. But I have chosen to part from religion, even though I do work for the Old Catholic Church, the United States Old Catholic Church. I believe in the faith I have in my Lord and Savior. I don't shove it down people's throats. I'm not an evangelical. I respect all other faiths. Everyone has the right to believe in, be it Christianity, Buddhism, witchcraft, even Santeria. There a lot of these faiths are misrepresented. And even in the Christian faith today, nowadays, we have evangelicals, which are the ones that are ruining the true message that Jesus had in the scriptures. And they're the hellfire brimstone people that I stay away from. I can't stand people like that. So if you're going to be a person of faith or of my faith, I'd always say be inclusive, not exclusive, because excluding people and making them feel guilt or shamed of their faith, you honestly think they're going to want to even have to listen to what you have as a faith? And I think that's the problem with religion nowadays.
Yeah, it's a complex issue to navigate, and it's only getting increasingly worse as we go through time. It polarizes and basically divides more than it unites.
I agree.
And I feel like the powers that be use religion as a device, unfortunately, and it's come out bad. for
Yeah.
those who took the time to establish these beliefs and religions. And frankly, the history of all the faiths and all the stories that are handed down by all these people have been edited and, mistranslated and hell knows what else. But there are some cool things that are still there. I do know that, the Catholic Church and a lot of other people try to keep the Bible like static as far as what the word says and how it's translated over time. And I do want to ask you about the Bible code, because when I did the research and then I looked at all these conspiracy theories, well, they're not really conspiracy, but it's, what I'm saying, the Bible code, how it kind of like tells the future and everything.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Is that just like a big book and they're finding codes that just happen to come up with these things? Because that's what the naysayers say. But what does the church say about that?
I'm not quite sure what the church says about that, but I actually happen to have that first book, the Bible Code.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually afraid of decoding because I didn't want to find out anything about my future. I don't know about you, but I don't want to know when I die. I don't want to know when this and that happens. But it had been proven to work. I don't know exactly. I know they use mathematics within the letters to actually decode. And it what was fascinating about the Bible Code is that it could be used for anyone. And that was scary. And it was being proven on Oprah Winfrey with the author of this book. And I was like, okay, I'm shutting this off because this is really beginning to wig me out. I didn't want to know. And even Oprah said, I don't want to know what's going to happen to me. And I was like, good choice. Take the, what was it? Which one was it? The green or the red? When it came to Matrix.
Red and blue.
Red and blue? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was the red? No, right? So
the red pill was to be freed from the Matrix. The blue pill was to stay.
Okay, so I chose blue, and and I'm going to keep it that way. But you see, that's another thing. Yes, there have been over 200 books removed from the Bible. Not too many people know this.
A lot of it, yeah.
There's the book of Enoch. There's the book of Judas, the very man that betrayed Jesus Christ for 30 pieces of silver. Book of Mary of Magdalene, the book of Mary. There's so many books in there.
The book of Giants.
Yes, there's the book of oh my gosh, the Watchers that has been removed as well, which were the ones that created the giants, the Nephilim, because there were more than just giants. There was heroes of old, they were referred to back then. In other words, the X-Men existed back then, but they had great power. But with great power comes great responsibility.
And their descendants, I believe, live among us, and I believe some of us who do light work and dark work are descendants of Watchers. Definitely,
I agree. And there's even been conspiracy theories out there that have stated that Bigfoot may be one of them. The Dogman of Michigan, also Mothman, because as the Mothman, there was the Mothman prophecies that every time he showed up or it showed up, something horrible was about to happen. It was an omen.
Right. So when you look at the literature, not only did they breed with the women, they bred with the animals. So that explains centaurs and satyrs, and all that stuff. Like, that's what I found fascinating when I did the research. I'm like, well, this is where the stuff comes up in the mythology that I read about when I was a young guy, reading nerdy stuff.
That was like you and I were parallel paths, studying the same thing.
Yeah. I believe we've had... We feel different. Like, we're walking through the life just like an alien, dude. That's how I felt like. It was a freaking alien. I didn't know what was going on. And then my mom, after years of suppression from my father, was telling me her role and her spirituality and who she is. I mean, she's an alien, dude. She's a freak. Okay.
But I mean, alien in what sense? From interdimensional, outer space, or
dude, you
alien?
tell me, like, based on my research, and my theory is there is, I mean, this sounds crazy, but I believe that there's people out there that don't know their lineage, and the physical lineage that comes from the period where the fallen ones, the watchers, bred with us, they are still here. And that shit ain't like, thinned out a lot. There are people out that are just freakazoids, and some people don't know what's going on.
I know I'm weird, and I know you're weird, but is Missy weird?
Missy's weird. Dude, in order to go toe-to-toe with something you call a demon, you best have some shit to bring. You can't bring, a gun to a demon fight, dude. You just can't.
We bring Missy.
Yeah. We'll show them Missy's knees and they run in horror. Ain't that right, Missy?
Yeah.
On that note, do you want to read any of these comments? I think there was a question. I can't be sure. I was trying to keep track.
I haven't seen any questions. It's just Matt goofing off.
Of course.
Basically, he said everyone here loves the Westboro Baptist Church. Oh, just kidding.
Oh, God, yeah.
No, they don't.
And then he said the Bible. I think I have that book.
Yep, everyone's got it somewhere.
Books. It's just not the Bible. I have to study so many. It's pathetic.
People would actually wig out if they read the Bible. I've read the damn Bible, and you have to keep reading it because it's so hard to retain all the information. I don't know if you noticed the standby screen. I picked a scene depicted out of the book of Samuel where Saul, the whole Witch of Endor story in the Bible, which people don't realize that's in there. And when people scream, "Oh, necromancy's not a thing," and all spirits are demons, I'm like, no, it says in the Bible they're not. They left one specific example that's in there, and that's one
person. I know one person that thinks that aliens are demons.
There's more than one, dude. There's a lot.
And I'm like, really? The government came out a few years ago admitting that yes, aliens do exist. So now we're to believe that aliens from other planets are demons? I'm like, no, I don't think so. We live in a very vast universe here.
I feel like people get confused. There are, I believe, what they call interdimensional beings.
That too.
They call them aliens, but a lot of interdimensional beings, if we're labeling them correctly, are showing you appearances that are not real.
I agree, and there was a debate I had with a colleague of mine and actually, this is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth, with a grain of salt. It's also through experience. This individual believed that they had come across a changeling demon. Well, no. From what I understand, they all have that ability. It's kind of like saying, I came across a bird, but it could fly. Like, there are some birds that can't fly, like the penguin, and not all of them can fly, but it still doesn't mean that they're not birds. They all have the same, form, but and they're all foul. But this person actually thought that it was a certain ability that this one demon had, and I was like, no, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but from my experience, every case I have come across, even other cases that I've consulted on, they can change to look like someone that's deceased or someone living, even look like an animal, and they have that ability. It's just that there's always some kind of imperfection. And this person was like, oh, okay, you're sure about that? I'm like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that I try to tell people all the time, and this is a new reason why not to trust your senses. Please prepare yourself to be wrong in the paranormal field and the spiritual world. Please prepare yourself to be deceived by your senses. And yeah, it's not black and white out there, folks, for sure.
A huge gray.
So what was the next question I was going to ask you? I know that my very first case, when I watched the TV shows, of course, I've had paranormal experiences in my early 20s that are so crazy and profound. I know it's real. Something's going on. But when my dad died in 2011, I started watching ghost shows on TV, and then I started seeing what they were doing. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I could do that if they can do that. So, of course, I'm trying to get the EVPs. I'm trying to do this and that. I met up with a guy I went to high school with, right? And he's like, hey, man, I'm working this case. The county over, from where we live at in southern Ohio, there's this missing person case. I'm not going to get into the details, but missing person case, a guy got convicted of murder, but they never found her body. It's a whole conspiracy. And to quicken up the story, when I did research on the guy that was in prison, he was in, Satan, Church of Satan, did, evil stuff with a group of his friends. And I got involved in this energy that just skipped right past infestation and oppression and all that and just murked people or tried to murk people. Okay. One night his sister woke up perfectly sane in the middle of the night and tried to burn the house down with him and her father in the house. And she got sent off to Looney Bin, and she's still there, dude. And dude, that guy disappeared for a year and a half. I didn't see him. Like, he was so freaked out, he ghosted himself. And he hasn't been the same since. And that was my first, like, okay, this feels bad, like super bad, right? And then I would go in shows talking about the case, and here comes these psychics and these light workers saying, oh, I don't like the ending of the story, because I had to back away from it. I want to do something well. They ended up, having friends and folks die and them almost dying themselves. And it just seems like the very few cases I feel like, demonics are involved, it skipped past all the normal things that demonologists say to look out for. And it went straight to, you're going to die tonight, for real die. And not too long ago, like a year and a half ago, I got mixed up with a gal I used to go to school with again. And, I asked these entities to prove themselves to me, and they started killing people in front of me and my wife. People from the church. We don't go to church. My wife went to a church to get some food for some people, and one of the church workers walked up to her window and said, "It's like, hey, how are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing fine." Chit chat, and it's a hot day. Yeah. She walks away. Soon as she walks away from my mom's vehicle, an old guy just came and mowed her down, killed her instantly. And then, like 3 days later, the pastor to the church died. No joke, dude. So I'm like, my wife's freaked out. She won't even let me go to this person's house, even though that I've went through the channels to try to get the case workable. She says no, so I have to, I had to sit my family down and say, hey, look, Daddy got into some crazy shit. Don't freak out, but let me know if something's going on, so I could, do something. But it just seems like there's something out there. And for some people, they hit you hard, because all the stuff in the beginning, the beginnings of it, they have to hit you in the jugular. Do you see that? Do you see some of these entities that we call demons or are demons go that route?
Yeah. There are some that don't mess around at all. They actually go straight for the jugular, as you said. There are some that will pretty much hear what someone has to say, or they'll try some kind of spell, and they're like, I'm going to sit in on this one just a little bit. And then there are those that like to show off. And boy, do they show off. They show off to the extent to where, wait, I just had like a house and a family yesterday, and they're gone because this chick decided to burn my house down. Oh, and then you go to church looking for help, and I'm not saying they're intertwined. I'm using what you just used as an example. And you get to talking to someone. Yeah, oh man, my house just burned down yesterday, and I came here. I'm hoping you guys can help. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Let me walk over to the cupboard, see what we got, and then bam, and then a week later the pastor dies, and they don't mess around. There's some that immediately start showing their colors, and they want to let you know, hi, I'm here. You decided to, bring me forth. You thought this was a joke. You wanted to play around. I'm nothing to play around with. And not saying they can't get rid of this, but also in tune with what you said, because I've seen many cases. I had a case, I say, oh boy, 12 years ago, actually, come to think of it, where this gentleman, I'd say young at that time, I was already in my 40s, but he was like 27, something like that. Just emailed me, and then I responded, of course. He started sending me all these pictures, and I was like, okay, what are you doing? He was sending me these symbols one by one by one, and I'm like, okay, stop with the pictures. What are you doing? And he said, I'm sending you pictures of the symbols that I placed in the Keys of Solomon. I was like, excuse me? Well, you see, I did a sigil of the Keys of Solomon, and I summoned forth the demon, and we struck up a deal, and he would give me everything I ever wanted, and I started receiving these things, and kept on receiving for a month or two. But now all these weird things are happening. There's a price to pay. I mean, you just can't ask someone for something and not expect anything in return. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. This young man was just messing around. He was drunk. He had come across a book that a college friend of his had in the dorm, and he gave it to him. He was like, look, I was going to throw this out. You want it? He came across it one day. He was having a party in his house, and it was the Keys of Solomon. And he started just shits and giggles, decided, I'm going to draw sigil and the symbols, and I'm going to conjure forth this demon. And I want this, and he did the whole ceremony during the party. Every single person that was witness to this, they started dying. One after the other, after the other, after the other. There was 6 deaths in the span of 2 months. In the 2 months that he was getting all the things he wanted, those were sacrifices. He didn't understand how this worked. You know what? The only thing I could tell him, and being a demonologist and knowing how these things work, I said, dude, I could show up there with 3 priests, 2 bishops, and the Pope, and myself, and we still wouldn't be able to help you, and I'll tell you why. You opened it, you gotta close it. It was your energy that you put into it, your energy that needs to close this out. He's like, how do I do that? And I said, well, you've already started with sending me the symbols that were in that sigil, so I'll start working with that. And I sent him what he needed. He said, I'm going to try this like tomorrow night for sure. And he said, I did it. Now I got to wait and see. And I said, please keep me informed. Never heard from the guy again. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if he's dead now too, but I don't know if we should add one more to the number of bodies that were dead after they witnessed him doing this, because there were 6 and he could be number 7. I don't know. These are things that if you really don't understand these things, why go and do this? It's like watching a video on YouTube on brain surgery and then saying, I'm a brain surgeon, I can do it, don't worry. Okay, come to my house. You got headaches, you more than likely have a tumor. Next thing you know, you go ahead and drill into that person's head and you kill them. That's you know,
my
murder.
explanation is a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this, a lot of people go through life not taking things as seriously as they should.
Agree.
You know, they see a book, maybe they're religious, maybe they're not, maybe they're like, oh, this is just a cool, fun game. Maybe they're afraid of the dark, watch some horror movies, you know, got the goosebumps a few times, and are like, oh, let's mess around with, you know, some sigils and see what happens. You know, if you're lucky enough to stick your toes in the water and feel the wetness and coolness and the realness of it and get out unscathed without drowning in the damn pool of water, you're lucky. You should learn. But you know, a lot of people, they're not freaking aware, dude. They're just not aware, and they don't know any better. You know, of course, if the guy knew that people would die, he probably wouldn't have done it.
True.
But see, that's the whole name of the game here, because
you count on your ignorance.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen to everybody who plays around with that type of stuff. But those that do will grab the attention, and they'll be held.
It also depends on what you're calling upon too. I mean, these are forces that we still do not understand, and although I see it this way: that everything starts off like this, and then splinters off to different things, and that splinters off into more, and before you know it, you got to start thinking to yourself, which came first, the chicken or the egg, or was it everything all at the same time? What are the rules? There's rules in the paranormal field. There are certain rules that we don't know ourselves, but we learn the hard way, don't we? And it's only when we provoke, case in point, and I'm sorry, but not sorry, if I'm a spirit, I'm trapped or living in that dwelling, and some bunch of yahoos that call themselves a paranormal team come in there, and they start saying, I dare you to scratch me, I dare you to, and they start provoking left and right. Now this spirit is not even aware that they're dead, so that's problem number 2. So how'd you die, huh? How did it feel and stuff like that? Well, if that spirit doesn't even know they're dead, hey, you just went in there, home, provoked. Number 2, was brought to their attention they're dead, and they didn't know this. It's a shock to their system. Did you help that family in doing that? No, not at all. In fact, when you leave, and this is something I learned many years ago, I had a team I was working with, Florida Ghost Team, back in 2003 to 2005, and the lead investigator, founder of the team, she had this knack to provoke. This is Ghost Hunter days, when Ghost Hunters had just come out. The thing of provocation wasn't even a thing back then. She would be like, man, I dare you to mess with me. I dare you. Come on now, push me, scratch me, anything. And then I'd get the calls or the emails from the client saying, oh man, I don't know what you guys did, but activity has gotten worse here since you guys left. That's not helping.
No.
That's when I started putting, 2 and 2 together and coming up with 4. But of course, the lead investigator, and mind you, love her to death, but she just didn't get it. I hope she's still alive. No one's ever heard from her again. She'd come up with those 2 as 9 and didn't just get it. I started realizing what she was doing was, what if that spirit doesn't know it's dead? You just brought this to the spirit's attention. Not only that, you went in there with an attitude and you kind of like stirred the hornet's nest. Well, the family is still there when you leave. They're the ones that are left there having to deal with this. So I started talking to her and telling her, hey, you may want to rethink how you approach this, because we're not leaving things better, we're leaving things worse. And that's when I started literally realizing we need to go in there respectfully. We need to realize that if there's someone in my space that comes into my space and they start disrespecting me that way, I'm going to react. It's just common knowledge. It's common sense, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, but you gotta get caught up into the paranormal pulp culture, and you're emulating what you see on TV, and your curiosity and your enthusiasm to find answers, get evidence, will get the best of you.
It's called
But
trigger situations, trigger objects. Why do we have to, de-evolve into being brutes? It's ridiculous. It's unnecessary.
I blame, TV.
I know who you
I blame, TikTok. The no patience. Short attention spans. Like, we want it now. But I wanted to shift gears. I know we're already through the halfway point. Before I ask you,
God, time flies.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've been talking. So, do you want to go ahead and take a break now, or do you want me to get into this really interesting question? Because I think about this all the time. So I'm going to ask it, and I'll let you decide whether you want to take a break and come back and answer it, or answer it now. But
I will take that break now, because
Okay.
I got to refill my cup and everything, and we can start the second hour with an interesting question.
All right, man. Just take a break. Take as long as you want. Come back and
Missy, take over. Show your knees.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen her knees?
No.
No.
You don't
She's
want
had both her patellas, or both her kneecaps have been removed, and she
Oh,
has
dude. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh.
Fine.
Ow. Oh, God, just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
It hurts
But
my
she could-
cockles. It really does.
She still walks around, dude, like a champion. She's a gladiator.
Oh, God bless you, girl. I'll be back in a few.
Alrighty.
Go check on your doggo.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until Rich gets back, hit me up with your questions. If you have any questions that you want me to ask Rich when he continues, I would love to convey those to him. I know the subject matter can not be taken seriously. I know it is met with great skepticism, which it should be. But I'm at the point where if you are going to believe that we survive death, our consciousness and what exists after our physical body dies cannot be derived from our brains or our bodies. It has to exist outside, and it's called dualism. And in order for dualism to exist, it's got to be out there. And we're tuning in to that consciousness. And if that is true, and that's what's going on, like I said in the beginning, these platonic values, these things, this war against good and evil, and this dualism we have with that has to exist outside, because that is a part of our consciousness. So, it's a subject matter I've studied for a long time. I really, really get into it. But like we discussed, we have our beliefs about what good and evil is. We have a lot of the historical records, the Bible, all these different mythologies, ancient mythologies, even, I'm talking about predating Sumerian mythology. A lot of our stuff that we see in the Bible is from those creation myths. But are they myths? That's a good question. There's a lot of stuff that the Egyptians left behind that, is derived from, ancient civilizations, whether it be Lemuria, whether it be Atlantis. There is something going on, and we really need to get a grip on what that is and how to deal with it from a balanced standpoint. There is far right and far left of the spectrum here, whether you're like a firm believer, you're a holy roller, everything in the Bible is gospel and true and literal, or you don't believe anything at all. You have to really try to align and stay in the middle there. And that I want that to be the takeaway. And I want that, I want Rich, because he is one of my favorite people to talk about this subject, because he tries to stay in that middle. He realizes that the middle is so important. Is there anything in the comments, Missy, that you want to read?
Kerman asked if aliens could be doppelgangers.
Sure. I mean, I've never met an alien, but all the stuff, the amateur research that I do on aliens, they can shapeshift. Sure.
Did you watch any of the congressional hearings today
No.
on UFOs and aliens?
No. Did you?
No,
Who asked that?
I did.
Oh.
I asked you if you did.
No. I didn't even know there was congressional hearings.
Yeah.
Is it full disclosure yet? Are they going to let us know that we're all, reptilian food and
Yeah, I think it's full disclosure this time because it's like Navy pilots and stuff.
Oh, they've already came forward.
Yeah, but now they're allowed to tell their truth.
All right, let's congressional UFO hearing. Let's see what that pops up.
Desiree said, I have so many questions about that stuff. How is there pyramids all over the world built the same way, the same time, with such perfection?
That is a mystery. Let's see what this
today
says.
About UFOs. CBS is now to some close encounters on Capitol Hill, where there was an extraordinary hearing today about UFOs. CBS's Scott McFarland reports on the stunning claims that the military is hiding evidence of alien spacecraft from the American people.
No, we had no idea.
Alien films are a Hollywood staple, so perhaps no surprise.
The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies.
There was a line out the door with people anxious for the government to share more about UFOs.
In the Baptist Church, we'd say that the devil's in our way.
A former intelligence officer, David
devil's in our
Grush,
way,
testified he suspects the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAP, office is covering up a decades-long program to retrieve crashed objects.
You believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
The Pentagon has denied Grush's claims. Two former military pilots also recounted their close encounters.
This object was estimated to be almost the size of a football field.
Former military pilot David Fravor testified he was astonished by what he saw in the sky.
No, I think it's far beyond actually our material science that we currently possess.
Congress signaled it'll ask federal agencies and the Pentagon to be more transparent
Many people believe that we're withholding information from them.
on any unexplained aerial phenomena incidents, of which there have been at least 366 reported since early 2021.
Do you think anybody's mind was changed because of this?
I think they will when they see this. They see those men. They're not just some random people off the street.
So you're seeing the pilot, the tic-tac-toe pilot. There's this guy, the middle guy, he's this whistleblower. And the guy on the left, I'm not sure who he is, Graves. I have to do some more research on him. But this is a trifecta of disclosure. We're getting to the point where we're ramping up for a disclosure, which I believe could be a fake alien invasion or a distraction for something else that they want to, slip by us here.
Senators this week will consider legislation requiring the National Archives to release federal reports about UFOs, arguing those mysterious items in the sky, JB, are a danger to military aircraft and U.S. security on the ground.
Scott, thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this Wednesday.
So, yeah, there you go, folks.
Dusty said, I think it's crazy they actually showed their faces and said who they were.
Well, the government has an agenda at all times, and they're not going to tell us anything that they don't want us to know. But these whistleblowers, are they being misled, or is this real? Now, I believe the Tic Tac videos were most likely our own, military, UAFs or, whatever they want to call it, that we have cloned from actual UFOs. And they just didn't let them know. And that would explain why when they disappeared and they reappeared at the rendezvous point, if you followed that tic-tac-toe, that story of the pilot, they were just testing our readiness and our interaction, what the pilots would actually do if they encountered them. That's my theory. I could be totally wrong. Watch a documentary above top secret. I think I've seen that. One. Josh is thinking of strange. Oh. How's things going, Rich? We were talking about UFOs in your absence.
Something I've seen twice. So yeah.
Yeah, they just had a congressional hearing with the Tic Tac pilot, that other whistleblower, I forget his name, and somebody else. But it's an interesting subject in a really interesting time. It's revolutionary because I know we kind of had almost like a weird disclosure back, in the 50s and 60s when the topic got hot. But it kind of got closed down during the Cold War, and that makes sense to me because if we were trying to clone technologies, we wouldn't want anybody to know what we had, right?
I mean, it's obvious. Oh, there was a I think since what was it, Area 51? There's been quite jump from where we were technology wise to to the point to where we have these guys now.
Yeah.
And
do you like the flip phone?
Flip phone? You know what? I'm an old fogey. I remember when the flip phone first came out, and I was like, oh, that is so Trekky. I definitely need one of those. So I was so happy when it came out. It's not the Motorola one. It's still Samsung. Tried the Motorola one, and I didn't like it at all. It had the features it had was I had to like relearn the phone, and it had limitations. And I always insist that my phone has a guard. It's funny how much we rely on phones nowadays, as opposed to back in the day, you had to be home to get a phone call, and it was landlines. And we've gone from landlines to videos and video games on the phone, face-to-face, FaceTime. It's TikTok has taken over. I remember back in the day when it was, you've got mail, to MySpace, and then Facebook, and now it's TikTok, and next thing you know, it's going to be something else altogether. We can't keep up with the technology nowadays.
Yeah, the deep fakes and AI that's out there is mind-boggling to me. Quantum computing, and especially coupled with AI, is going to be interesting. Something's going on.
My son's been experimenting with the AI and applying music to it, and he's been coming up with amazing videos. He's a musician, so naturally also a techie. So at the tender age of 14, he actually built his own computer. Let's just put it to you that way. YouTubed everything on how to put a computer together, and he did it. I was like, oh, okay, fine. You don't want a PlayStation, that's fine. Let's get you the parts. And he did it. Nowadays, technology, it baffles my mind, because I remember growing up in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, we didn't have that type of technology at all. Into the 2000s, things started getting really weird, and that's, I believe, the beginning of a new era for everyone when it came to technology. So it's hard to ignore the fact that I think little by little the government has been letting out, pieces of technology that they have actually been able to take from crash landings and implementing that technology into our everyday, life.
Yep. There was definitely a noticeable jump in tech. A lot of people theorized that it was, a trade deal or just stolen tech from, encounters with extraterrestrials. We're living in an interesting time, because I feel like, I don't know if you follow Chad Kalick at all, but if you do a quick Google search on what the heck is his name? Crap, it escapes me now, but someone contacted him and made all these predictions. Skyfall. His code name was Skyfall, and he told Chad Kalick that there's long story short, there's going to be a fake alien invasion, and the agenda is a new world order to where, we'll have to, all the countries would have to unite their forces in order to, defeat and combat these alien attacks. And it's all really, really interesting. But, he's saying that aliens do exist, but, they don't, the war is going to be fake. It's basically going to be, somehow to get the New World Order agenda in full effect. Or they've made several attempts, but if they're able to pull that off, that would impress me, because I know that they shot down a few things that they called UFOs here in the last year, and I'm just like, are they really expecting us to believe that they can just shoot something that's floating in the sky and say that they don't know what it was?
Wasn't there a crash landing of sorts in Arizona, somewhere in Arizona, a few months ago, and there were a lot of people that saw aliens walking through their ring?
Yes. Let me go on my Facebook real quick and see if that was in Arizona. It might have been Nevada.
It may have been. It had to be one of those deserts. One or the other. They're all deserts.
But before we digress too much, I know you're gonna love you want to talk about Eli Roth Presents, the Legion of Exorcists experience. Of course, I haven't got to talk to you personally about it. Are you still under NDA, or can you say anything about the show?
Oh no, I can pretty much, yeah. All the episodes have been aired, all 6, and now I'm actually free to talk about.
Yay! Okay, so how did they get in contact with you? Tell us from the beginning how you got involved with the show and how your experience was on the show. If you don't mind.
I've been involved with the paranormal and also demonology for a great amount of years, 35 years to be exact now, in demonology, about 37 when it comes to the paranormal. I've had people from even the UK, from Canada, reach out to me when it comes to anything that has to do with demonology. And I've created a little pocket, if you will, over the years of some notoriety, and having worked with Bishop Long as I have since 2010, and he was my last mentor for 5 years. And the way I came across Eli Roth Presents the Legion of Exorcists was there was already someone that was going to be in my spot, in my chair, and they pulled out at the last minute. And producers were like, well, crunch time, we need someone to fill the spot. And Bishop said, I know the perfect person. And my name out there, they contacted me, and I literally had 1 month, 2 weeks to prepare filming. That was around the time I started getting sick, ironically. And
is it ironic? What's your theory?
You know my theory. I don't think it's ironic. I think what the path less traveled is the one that Travel Channel chose to go with. I commend them for it. They chose to, instead of approaching demonology and anything demonic, instead of going about it paranormally speaking, they decided to go about it theologically speaking, through the eyes of theologians, individuals that are well studied, that are the real deal, actual bishops and ministers and preachers and demonologists that have actually been taught in church. But instead of going the route of having paranormal investigators that are not versed in this, don't deal with this on the aspect of church. That's the route they went in, and that's why it's so different. There's been a lot of mixed views when it comes to the recreations, to the stories, the real experiences that we had. Leave it to Hollywood to always throw in their recreations kind of like being exaggerated over and over again, which they were. But the stories were true, the experiences were true, the recreations were a bit over the top, I will admit. But I think it's safe to say that those experiences that were now being given out from the theological side versus the paranormal side, which is what we've gotten for years now, for decades actually, was I think a welcome change. And I think that's where people get confused, because you have to think of the demographic of people that watch Travel Channel. It's 99.9% paranormal enthusiasts, individuals that are either in or interested in the paranormal. And when they saw a bunch of us sitting around a round table discussing what we experienced and having it recreated, they were calling us, and still do, fakes. I'm not, and neither's Bishop Long or anyone else there. The problem is they don't know what to make of this. They know the usual names that they see in Travel Channel, and they say, well, they're the real deal. I'm like, okay, they're the real deal when it comes to paranormal, I guess, but you don't know anything about us, and you don't know anything about our credentials. And there was a lot of slack. I got a lot of hate mail. Ironically, it wasn't even about my story. It's, like the old saying goes, guilty by association. There were witches that were very pissed off at me because, how dare you? I'm like, how dare I what? I haven't even said a word yet. I mean, if you have or haven't seen the show yet, I was the guy doing this half the time. Listening to what they had to say, very careful about what I would say, because there were some things that the only person I knew there was Bishop James Long. That's it. He's been a friend of mine since 2010, present day. He's been my mentor. Even yesterday, I told him what was going on with the dog. He sent me a prayer, and he prayed with me and everything. He's an amazing friend. I consider him a brother. Everybody else, I didn't know. I didn't know what, religious faction they were a part of. I didn't know what I was dealing with here. So when they came across their stories and I was hearing their explanations, I was like, okay. I'm not gonna, I couldn't, it's not that I didn't believe them. It's just, I think their lack of knowledge when it comes to what you and me and Missy know when it comes to the paranormal, and calling certain things evil when they're not, was what pissed off so many people. People that were identified as witches, santeros, voodoo priestess, and so on and so on. Now, mind you, in every religious faith, there's good, there's bad. And to them and me, even, having my own podcast, Greetings from Beyond Radio, actually addressed this issue. Many of the symbols over the years have been misinterpreted. The pentacle, everyone knows the pentacle. It kind of looks and does look a lot like the Star of David, doesn't it? I find that to be amusing. But if you invert it, because back in 1966, someone by the name of Anton LaVey decided he was going to copyright the inverted pentacle and call it the pentagram. I don't know if you're aware of that history. And they instead chose to use that inverted pentacle, that was now identified as a pentagram, to conjure forth demons, to do conjurings and spells and whatnot. This is the misunderstanding that I think a lot of the witches were all up in arms about. Oh, how dare you! What they actually did depict in the recreations was an actual inverted pentacle. It was a pentagram, and that is often used, ironically, by Satanists and also individuals that claim to be Satanists but really don't know what the hell they're talking about and don't know what they're doing, and tend to experiment. And when they experiment and they start messing with these things, that's when they, find themselves in a whole world of hurt. But that when I got started with the Legion of Exorcists, I knew what they were trying to do. They were trying to veer everyone off of this road and kind of veer them off a little bit over here and say, look, I know you guys keep hearing that this is demon, this is demon, this is demon from these sources. Let's go to the ones that really deal with this on a regular basis, which is the church. And that's why people didn't get it. And I think in time, they've been realizing, oh, that's what Travel Channel was trying to do, which, if you think about it, was brilliant. But when it came to the stories that involved symbols, involved naming out certain faiths and factions and stuff like that in a bad light, I think was in many ways it kind of backfired. I think knowing all five of them, their hearts are in the right place, but I think that they need to really take the time to study these different faiths and religions and understand what they are. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's evil.
Right.
It's my opinion on it.
I'm trying to do my part, but I'm just one guy. I really want to be involved in the paradigm shift when it comes to portraying what the paranormal is from a more balanced perspective, from a more of a, research versus investigation versus, demystifying and redefining what it all is from a more refreshing, more advanced standpoint. We're still drudging all this crap that we've had, for how many hundreds of years with us to the paranormal table, like that show tries to do. And and I know there's a lot of members from the church, especially those like James Long, who deals with paranormal and the church activities. He knows, like we know, that there needs to be a paradigm shift when it comes to these things. And I don't know if Hollywood and the TV world is willing to, help in that regard. It doesn't look like they are.
Oh, there was one instance where they misrepresented a symbol.
In the show?
In the show. And I did, mind you, I had no idea what the shows looked like or how they were going to be depicted until it was showtime. We had no idea. I knew Eli Roth was involved. We met Eli Roth the last day that we were filming. He was a great guy, very down to earth. The producers, everyone there, they were great. But Hollywood's idea of what they consider to be evil, what they think we consider to be evil, theologians or paranormal investigators, is completely off the grid. They need to have someone that is well versed in both theology and the paranormal to consult them on certain issues.
Why don't they, though?
I don't know. I wish I knew, because I even saw this one shock doc that it threw me off. They had called in a witch practitioner. And this witch practitioner had been in contact with the demonologist. Mind you, you never got to see the demonologist. She had, called the demonologist, and they were handling a case. I'm not going to name names. And this witch practitioner, which did her job at first and said, this is what happened here. This and this and this. And this is what usually happens when this is, done. Okay. Then proceeded towards the end to start doing an actual cleansing or should I say blessing, Catholic, Christian blessing. It's like a rabbi doing a Catholic Christian blessing. I want you to think about that. I was so, I felt so icky inside as I watched this woman saying these things. Not saying that she's wrong and saying it's not her place. Look, if you're gonna have brain surgery, don't have a proctologist come in and do the surgery.
Unless your brain's in your ass.
Well, that's a different matter altogether. We know plenty of people with that issue.
Yeah,
but
should be an occupation.
But that's what I witnessed in this shock doc, and I was like, "What the hell are they doing? Why didn't they call in clergy? Why didn't they call in a demonologist?" At that time, mind you, this came out long before the show. If I had known about it, I would have been like, "I can offer my services, but dude, the witch already did her job. Good on her. I'll do the rest." But there was a lot of things that I noticed there that were just done completely wrong. And I felt the same when it came to the show. There was a lot of depictions that were done wrong because he did not get a consultant. They need to have consultants. They need to start listening to people that are willing to, that are in this, in the paranormal and theology, and take advice from them. Look, if you're going to recreate, don't do it like this. An upside down cross is not a bad thing, okay? Hollywood made it a bad thing. You do realize that the upside down cross is the story of St. Peter. St. Peter was crucified.
Yeah,
upside down.
Upside down.
Yeah, because he refused to be crucified as his Messiah was. So he said, in respect to my Messiah, please crucify me upside down. But leave that in the hands of Hollywood and bam, you got something bad. It's evil. It's the devil. No, I got news for you. It ain't. But of course, leave it in the hands of Hollywood, and then people start thinking upside down cross.
To answer my own question is, they're more concerned with entertainment, and when it becomes less entertainment and more educational or controversial, when it contrasts what the entertainment industry has been, using for all this time, they've already brainwashed us to be entertained and believed in a certain way. We're all influenced by horror movies and everything that we're fed through our TV screens. So I feel like the reason why I'm not super popular is because I try to poo-poo on 99% of everything, and I try to educate people on actually how to investigate claims and use their equipment properly. I'm going to piss a lot of people off because, let's face it, all the large community of paranormal investigators out there are just emulating entertainment.
I agree. But I don't disagree with what you're doing. I think what you're doing is a service, not a disservice. Because if you're going to be using the gadgets that are always coming out there, and you don't know the scientific purposes for them, what they measure, what they're for, you're just waiting for the bright lights to turn on, and ooh, it's a spirit. No. It could be the microwave, the refrigerator, it could be the wiring, it could be a plethora of things setting that off. Of course, yes, you're right. Hollywood's job is to entertain. My suggestion is entertain, but at least entertain with the correct information. And that in itself is the most important thing. Hence why I've liked your videos. Your documentaries are spot on. How you go about doing things is the correct way of doing things.
Thank you.
I actually appreciate that, because coming from a background where I've had to test everything, dude, I started off with lead tape recordings and Polaroid cameras back in the 80s. Okay, long before there were EMFs that were being used to detect ghosts, and instead being used to find the wiring inside walls. Okay, the cell sensor. I'm sure you remember that. Before Geiger meters, before all these gadgets, the ghost box and all that there was just simple EVPs, and that was accidental, by the way, if you know the history on it. And also Polaroid cameras. Guess what? There were no orbs and Polaroid pictures. Now all of a sudden digital cameras pick up on orbs, dust, basically, all the time. And the first investigation I went to was an abandoned hotel, which on this day is very, very popular. It's in Coral Gables here in Miami. It's called the Biltmore Hotel. It was used during World War II. But it went closed for a very long time. I went in there in 1986, 87, something like that. It was boarded up. Yes, I went into an abandoned building that was boarded up, fenced, and had to go through various homeless people that were actually living in there, get to the 13th floor, because that's where all the activity was allegedly in, and do my investigation. Do you realize I came back with no evidence? Zero. Nada. And I was pissed. But I was hooked from that point on. I was hooked. And that is me also thriving in school when it came to science. I loved science and learning everything there is to know about science, and then realizing that that's what the paranormal field is trying to use to actually prove the existence of the things that are unseen. I started saying, okay, this can work, but you need to understand the science behind it. If you don't understand the science behind it, you're basically just waiting for those bells and whistles to go off. You're basically wasting your time. Mm-hmm. It's not proof of anything. It's kind of like, those apps that people put on their phones nowadays that are ghost radars. You see the ghosts actually moving towards you. And I'm like, seriously? So these ghosts are carrying phones too? How the hell are they tracking ghosts?
Well, I can explain to you real quick how the tech works.
Okay, please do.
So there are sensors in your phone to detect electromagnetic fields. Okay, they kind of trick the hardware into kind of triangulating, magnetic fields is what they're doing, and the hardware is designed for compass apps to work, right? So if you download a compass app, it can find true north because of the magnetic pull. So ghost app developers are like, we can kind of use this as a ghost detector. So they, use that feature that, put dots on there. But, when I took 2 or 3 different phones and loaded the same exact app and laid them down next to each other, guess what happened?
Were they the same?
No. So, yeah, they may be using that tech in the phone, but it's not even reliable to measure what it's supposed to. So it's immensely flawed. But people are not going to go the lengths it takes probably to investigate the hardest phenomena that I can think of. They're not going to do it because it's harder than anything you can think of to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's easier for be like, there's an app for that. I can, as a hobby, hunt for ghosts in my house or in a cemetery, what have you, and have fun with it. So that's not me. That's not you. There's folks out there to take this seriously. A lot of them are watching this right now. So a lot of them, they'll figure out real quick that, hey, there's a lot of these things out there giving false positives. I mean, even our senses, our bodies are false positive machines.
Yeah.
You have to understand psychology and the limitations of our senses. And
I can easily explain to you right now why this demonic craze or phobia has started. Because what do we fear the most is what really manifests for anything else. If you fear snakes, and you're out in the woods and you hear something in the middle of the night, you're walking around in the woods, you're not gonna think raccoon, you're not gonna think deer, cougar, bear, you're gonna think a snake.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing you fear the most when you're in the woods. You're in an abandoned house or in an investigation, you're gonna fear the one thing that you may fear the most, and that may be, if you believe in demons, you're gonna think it's demons. What comes forth? Subconsciously, to your conscious mind, the first thing that comes to mind is demon. That's why so many of these paranormal shows nowadays have these people screaming demon all the time. How many times have you come across, and I ask you this, Justin, and also Missy, a very, very pissed off human spirit that can actually come across as something demonic, and you swear.
Times.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean it's a demon. It just means it was as in life, so they are in death.
You're an asshole in life, you're an asshole in death.
There's always the option of going asshole too. It's not like,
That's
you know,
true.
let's not generalize things. Something could happen one day. You want to be an asshole. You're an asshole that day.
So, can ghosts have psychotic breaks?
Yeah.
There you go.
In my opinion, no one knows the answer to this, but I theorize that earthbound spirits or spirits who do not go onto the one, to God, to crossover, whatever you want to say, is not a natural phenomenon. That's not what's supposed to happen. Okay? So when you have an unnatural phenomena like that, your psyche is not in a good place. You're in limbo. You're in purgatory. You are stuck. That's not good. So most of these entities that I have encountered are not having a good time.
Do you remember that? Okay, I'm sure you guys by now have seen the famous movie Ghost with the late great Patrick Swayze.
Great movie, fantastic
Great movie. And I love the depiction of that one ghost in the subway, one that taught Patrick Swayze to move the penny. Now that was a ghost, a spirit that refused to go to the other side. But was he crazy in life, or did he grow mad in death? That's the true question. Because he was stuck. Was he stuck, or did he choose to not pass on? And that is really the question. You have to really think about it. There are great movies out there. If people would actually take the time to watch and theorize with those movies, like the movie The Others, Nicole Kidman. For the longest time, and a spoiler here, cover your ears, for almost halfway through that movie, I thought, oh my God, I feel so sorry for Nicole Kidman and her kids. My God, that they're dealing with these. Wait a minute. They're the spirits. And the living are the ones haunting. Yeah, exactly. They didn't know they were dead. But here we are thinking as the audience, oh, that poor family, they're dealing with these weird things going. Oh, yeah, they're the spirits. Yeah. Yep. Okay. See, there's many ways of thinking of things and perceiving things. It's just that people don't think outside of the box anymore. They're given a box and they're told, think inside that box. Don't go outside of it. You and I are the ones that think outside of the box constantly. And that's why people either like us, dislike us, or they're on the fence about us. And you know what? I don't care. Here I am, dude. I'm wearing my rings. I'm wearing this shirt, and the beanie. I really don't care what people think about me. You're a demonologist? Yes, I am. 9.5 years of formal training. 35 applied. And I can honestly say recognized by 2 churches. Now, the first one, unfortunately, the pastor passed away. But yeah, unlike the many self-proclaimed demonologists out there that read a book or two or watch Supernatural way too many times and think that they put just rock salt inside their shotgun and they can take out any demon, that's not how this works. There's a lot of protocols that I need to go through before I can actually move in as a demonologist, actually define or actually call something demonic and recommend that clergy actually come in. I hope that was one of your questions.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter. Pretty much whatever you say is going to pertain to the subject matter. So if you digress or deflect, whatever. There's the question I was going to ask you before we went to break. I want to make sure we get it in there. As a demonologist, as someone who studies and researches the topic, do you feel, to premise this, when you started talking about the story with the sigils and the keys of Solomon and everything, do you feel like there are rules? There is some type of structure that these entities follow or have to abide by in order to do their work? Because if you think about it, if you're a nasty, if you're evil, and you have these powers, why not just do it to everybody whenever you want all the time? Why isn't everybody possessed and the whole world just in hell right now? So my question is there rules and a structure in place to where that doesn't happen? And if so, what are the rules, and what kind of give us an idea of what that structure is?
Actually, isn't that something? It's a great question, by the way. But isn't that what we are trying to find out within the paranormal field? How does the spirit world interact with
that's
ours?
That's why I'm asking you, brother.
Exactly. The thing is that the only common denominator that exists between theology and the paranormal, demons, fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, and human spirits, is your spirit. That's it. Are they in different dimensions? Yes, they are. Can you see them now? I'm looking around. I don't see any. But we've sensed them. We've seen them at times. We've experienced what they've done to others and to ourselves while we've been there. Now, the key is, how do we communicate with them? Well, do you really want to communicate with something known as a demon or fallen angel, knowing that their sole purpose is to actually destroy you? Why even go there? I had one case that came to me many years ago. I was on the phone with this woman for 2.5 hours, maybe longer, and devout Christian, never even played with a Ouija board, never even smoked a cigarette, church, Bible study, prayer meetings, you name it. And for some strange reason, all of a sudden, she's here telling me of these. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. She'd come home and her cat, who had just had like 6-7 kittens, they were all splattered all over the wall.
What?
And yeah, and she was like, I don't know what's going on, and I keep seeing these black shadows back and forth in my house ever since, and I don't know what's going on. And also my son has been taken over. Sometimes it's him, sometimes it's not. And I was like, wait, back up. I let her tell her whole story. I asked very few questions. I tend to listen more than I do, intervene. And I said, you said black shadows and you said knocks. Now, knocks where? On the wall or the door? And she's like, oh God, this has been going on for 8 months now. There seems to be like knocks on my door. I open the door and there's nothing there. I'm like, how many knocks? She said 3. You'd open the door every time? Yeah, and there was no one there. I'm to find out. And I said, well, that's fascinating. How many times would you say you've done this? Oh God, I've lost count. So I'm here thinking to myself, is there anyone else to verify this? And she said, well, her neighbor one day came to me after the 4th knock. She said, didn't you notice? Didn't you look out the window that there was a black shadow? This is during the day. I want you to think about this, Justin. This was during daytime. There was a black shadow walking, on the path to your door. It knocked. You opened it and it went into your door, into your house.
Hence
and
the rules.
You're looking around. Exactly. Those are the rules. The people don't know it until it happens. But that's their rules. That's an invitation. It doesn't matter. Just like we had discussed earlier in the first hour. Annalise Mikkel, devout Catholic, good girl, Catholic school, everything. And she ends up being killed. by demonic possession. And this woman, devout Christian, those are the ones they target the most. Those are the Marlins that they go for. This woman didn't understand that she had been letting demon after demon after demon into her home. That's the spirit world rules that they apply by. You don't have to play, Ouija board. You don't have to play with a pendulum. You don't have to play with black magic or spells. Sometimes if they really want to get to you, they'll find a way. Her way was knock, 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 open the door, bam, they're in. Me, I live in Miami, the big 305. Someone knocks on my door, this thug is going to be looking through the peephole and the window to make sure there's someone there, because I ain't going to open my door. I've had too many times where I've heard, and I've looked through the peephole, there's no one there. I've looked through the window, I'm like, not today, Satan. So I'm immediately the one putting the sign of the cross, doing the prayer on the inside of the door and praying and pushing against it. But this woman, and it's funny what had happened. It's not funny actually, but she came home that day and she found kitten parts. All the kittens were killed. What had happened was, whatever had been invited, because by this time I think it was knock number 6. These kittens had literally, I guess, been thrown into the fan.
No way.
Seriously. Fan. And
no
these
way.
kittens went ping, ping, and splattered all over her room. She sent me pics. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And it was like the walls were white, now crimson red with kitten parts all over it. Viewer discretion advised here. They don't play around. And the mama cat was like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
so
these are rules that we don't understand until we actually experience it. And you know what happened at the end? Just to end it real quick, Justin. At the end, when I said, "Well, there's your problem," you open the door, and she's like, "You mean to tell me that's how they, these demons came in? You're full of, you know what?" And hung up on me after more than 2.5 hours talking, just like that. Never heard from her again because she didn't want to take my answer. It is what it is.
Yeah. So the next question I would ask, and probably many others would be like, okay, some cases involve they just come in without invitation, seemingly without invitation. Some require invitation, seemingly require it. It's almost like from the old vampiric stories, and stuff where that comes from.
Black-eyed kids.
Yeah, and those.
Something I still want to investigate.
I'm good, but from afar, like as long as
We'll leave a camera there. If they show up, just turn the camera on. Okay.
But that's why it's so weird, because to answer my own question with what I believe is there are different things out there. Yes. And there's different circumstances, and it's not like Monopoly where you just have these rules and you just follow the rules of the game. There's these certain circumstances dealing with certain people during certain times, and it's weird that you'll get the knock of 3s, you open the door, you let them in. You don't know what your guardian angel's doing that day. You don't know who you have out there, who your spiritual posse is trying to protect you. Not everybody have these protections. Not everybody has reinforcements. And what I learned was when you have that protection and those reinforcements, they have to find a way in, like hackers. They have to go fishing for your information. They have to do certain things to get in to bypass the firewall that you have on your home, on your life. And I feel like there's a lot of analogies to draw from with these things. Like you have a spiritual immune system. Sometimes it's weakened. Sometimes the viral nasties will get in and infect. That's why you have to start trying to think of these things outside the box, like you said, to really understand what's going on. That may not be exactly what's going on, but you have to look at it that way. So it's important to strengthen your spiritual immune system to protect yourself. However you believe, you need to do that. And that's why, we try to think of these rules and these parameters to understand. It's interesting, but it makes sense to me that the case where, Annalise McKellar, I think that's how you pronounce her name.
Annalise McKellar.
Yeah. There's a different circumstance there.
Yeah.
The story you just told, different circumstance, right?
Exactly. And I also I'm going to throw another one into the fray. How about nature spirits?
Right.
Nature spirits have different rules. It's simply just crossing into their territory, building on their territory, tearing down trees or bushes. That would be enough to piss them off. They're neutral. I consider them to be neutral. They're not evil. They're not good or evil.
Neutral as in theologically, they're neutral.
Not even theologically speaking. I think they're just territorial. You respect them, they'll respect you. I've had cases that I've heard of, cases I've been involved in where, come to find out, a person started digging a well, and because they dug that well in their home, that was a violation of their territory. So to actually leave offerings, all the activity that was happening around their house, and I'm talking with this person had 4 dogs. 2 of their dogs mysteriously died. They were found dead, within a span of 3 months. And they weren't old dogs, not like mine, but they were found dead. And there was trees that were actually beginning to sway. The branches were actually beginning to fall onto their home. There was a lot of weird things going on in their house, like electrical issues. And come to find out, they called in a shaman. Shamanism, I have a great deal of respect for. Very close friends with Willie Windwalker. And this shaman had said, "You dug this well recently?" "Yeah, we want to draw water. We have a water source beneath here. And we want to be able to water our mango trees, avocado trees." This was here in Florida. "And we don't want to have to be wasting, pounds, and pounds of water. So we wanted to dig a well." "Well, you didn't ask permission first." So he gave them instructions as to how to ask permission. All the activity stopped. It had nothing to do with demons. It had to do with nature. We have to, as people, we need to learn there's categories for things. But all the answers to the rules to the game also tend to change a lot. We can't always just be thinking like this. We always have to splinter off and think into different, directions, because it might seem like one thing, but in fact it's something else altogether.
Or all the things like an onion.
Exactly. To quote Shrek, yes. We have many, many layers. And, I love Shrek. Shrek is awesome. He's very wise.
Most of the time when you're dealing with a paranormal case, it's not just one thing. I believe most of the time, especially here in the rural part of Ohio where I live, nature beings are so prevalent.
There you go.
Okay. But you can have transient entities, you can have, theological entities. All of them could be on the playing field. And how they interact and how you have to deal with their interaction could be a shit sandwich at the end of the day.
Well, I have a question, and it's just my personal question. What can you invite them in your dreams and not know that you did it?
Yeah.
Invite
Go ahead.
who?
Anybody. The demons,
I think they can enter through dreams, yes. And it also, if you don't normally protect your home, I do, especially the business I'm in. I kind of have to. I think they can attack you through that, and that's their way in, because that's when your body is, when it's in REM state, that's when your body's at the weakest. So naturally, yes, I do believe they can attack. I've had many situations where I've been not doing my prayers or whatnot. Not like I have to constantly every day, seal my house, but kind of like slacked off or been away from the house, and I've been attacked through dreams. And it's because of what I do for a living. It's just not a paranormal investigator. Being a demonologist, I have a bullseye that is tattooed on me. Forget painted, it's tattooed on me, and I get attacked. And that's one way that they've done it. I've had plenty. Let me tell you something. I'm one of those that I don't dream often, and when I do, and I hate to sound like that cliche commercial of that old man, but I don't dream. But when I do, I will say this: the dreams have been not dreams; they've been nightmares, and they've been terrifying. It has some kind of meaning, and it usually ends up happening. It's not a prophetic dream; it's kind of like a warning shot off the starboard bow for me, and it ends up happening. And some people will say, well, that's you're doing a self-fulfilling prophecies here. No, because I quickly forget about it, and then all of a sudden it happens, and then when it happens, I remember the dream. It's kind of like deja vu-ish for me. So,
yeah, it's what they call a prophetic dream, or your subconscious has a way of trying to communicate to your consciousness.
It's your spidey sense going off.
Yeah. But see, Missy, she does a lot of spirit work in her dream state. I mean, it's off the charts. So that's probably why she asked a question, right, Missy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know people that do that often, and Missy, I commend you for it, because that's if you come across some guy named Freddie, don't take candy from him.
Well, my uncle's name was Freddie, and I wouldn't take candy from him.
Wow. It's 10. It's almost 10. Can you believe it?
Oh my God.
Do you want to plug anything?
Well, first and foremost, yeah, I guess my Facebook fan page, Everything Rich Valdes Demonologist on Facebook. That's where you can find me if you guys want to follow. And also on Instagram, The Real Rich Valdes, but with lowercase between the Real Rich Valdes symbols in there, and you can find me on Instagram there. Other than that, Greetings from Beyond Radio will be coming back towards the end of August. Season 1 is over. Season 2 will be back, and we're gonna have a Bigfoot specialist on to start it off, and we're gonna be Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We've changed the time, so we're only going to be an hour and a half in. We're going to dedicate an hour to the guest and about a half an hour of POD, points of discussion, after we have our guest leave. So we'll be able to talk bad about our guests afterwards. Not just kidding. Just things we've learned while we had our guests on. So Greetings from Beyond Radio, you can follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and you'll know when we're coming back.
Sweet, man. Plus, he's part of the show,
Well, Eli Roth Presents the Legion of Exorcists. You can watch that on Discovery Plus and also Max. All 6 episodes are on there. And I'm looking forward to season 2. Positive thinker, sending it off to the universe. It's going to happen. And if not there, then somehow, some way, I'll pop up in some other show, and I'll be like, hi, remember me? I was the guy that didn't talk much on the Legion of Exorcists. I'm here to help.
I can sit in a chair and stare at you with my finger,
Exactly.
Sweet, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on again.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for everything you do, man. You're always a good guy to talk to about the subject matter. We'll have you back on again, and some other projects that they pop up, I'll definitely keep you, in my Rolodex as a contact or someone to potentially, work something. But
definitely, I said, use me as a worm on a hook. And what was the name of that mansion you were talking about last week?
Oh, the one that we're going to be filming in, the Hill Forest Mansion? Is that
No.
Yeah.
It started out... Missy, help us out here. Come on now.
Mansion.
I don't remember.
She said it had power and you could sleep there. It had running water.
Oh, that's Monroe House.
Yeah.
It's not a mansion.
Okay, whatever. I'll stay there. I'll stay in a shack for 3 days, and I'll tell you. Whew,
I think the place would benefit having a demonologist go check it out. I don't know if anybody that with that expertise has been there and has published anything or give any feedback, but yeah, if you're interested, I can point you in the right direction to get you there.
I know.
I will. Rich, you can hang out on the call while I close this up, or you can hang up however you would like to do it. But
I gotta check
again,
on my
man.
puppy.
All right, man.
Thank you guys for having
Thanks,
me.
Rich.
Thank you, Missy. Sorry
talk
about your
again.
kneecaps.
It's okay.
That's hilarious. You have a good night, sir.
You too. Take care. Peace.
All right. Thanks for joining us, man. So, real quick, guys, thanks for watching. I know it's a long show, but I like having Rich on because it's not always just doom and gloom, straight out of the church demonology and preaching at you. He's in the paranormal field, so there's a lot of wealth of knowledge there, and comes from a more balanced standpoint. Follow the links. Follow us on social media or Patreons. Please shout them out. Send them some love, whatever you got to do. Clay Borman, Josh Bender with Deadlight LLC, Heath Edwards, Tony Pelosi, Gina Rutledge. Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it. So that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Thank you very much. Next week, I will probably have another guest. I know Matt wants to come on. So we'll figure that out. We'll get in touch with you guys and see. We may have 2 people on at the same time. I'm not sure. We'll find out. I'm not even sure what days we're going to consistently have this show on. So stand by for that. Message me. Email me at justinbrown@interfacedeath.net. Message me on Facebook. Let me know what days you think are the best to have this show. But sometimes we'll have guests. Sometimes we'll do peer reviews. Sometimes it'll just be me and Missy talking about stuff. We're going to try different formats. All right? You guys have a good evening. We'll see you sometime next week. Don't know what day, but it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a good night.